Welcome to Uncloseted Conversations. Even if you stumbled upon this channel by accident, you are welcome here. The stories here are from my heart, from my soul, from my pen to your ears. I hope that you will stay a little longer and open yourself to the magic of storytelling. Here I write fiction, and though not always aligning with reality, it still tugs at heartstrings. Stories are escapes and sometimes a balm to the soul. So, enjoy your time here, and if reality presses down too loud and too hard, come knock at the door, come in, take a seat, grab a coffee, and just exhale. These are veil-bound stories, and the space is free and non-judgmental. Sit back, earphones or pods in, and let's listen to another exquisite romance. In a world where betrayal is executed, she found love. Prologue, Scaoria. In Scaoria, time lingers like a half-remembered dream, history etched into every stone and shadow. Here, where marriages are sacred, love a currency more binding than law, and betrayal carries a price darker than any dungeon. Cheating in a courtship land one in chains, cheating within a marriage punishable by death. Only then, and only after the blood has been spilled, may the abandoned heart seek another. The Black Citadel stands as a monument to this cruel order, its walls whispering the names of the condemned, its dungeons already echoing with the footsteps of the doomed. And somewhere within, the executioner sharpens her blade, patient, unyielding, knowing the cost of hearts that stray. Arnora Valdi's husband, Bijan, has been caught in a web of his own making, an affair that seals his fate. A marriage neither of them chose, forced by ancestral truth and duty, now unraveling in betrayal. To Arnora, Bijan is no more than an obstacle, a shadow blocking the path to what her heart truly craves. And in that heart, the fire of defiance waits, ready to burn. Act I, Scene I, the proof. The notice arrives without drama. No knock. No warning bell. Just the soft scrape of parchment slid beneath Arnora Valdi's door, as impersonal as snowfall and twice as cold. She knows what it is before she bends to pick it up. Everyone does, in this age of sacred vows and sharpened laws. The Black Citadel does not waste ink on anything else. The seal is intact black wax, pressed with the sigil of the Concord, two rings interlocked, a blade drawn cleanly through their center. Marriage, divided by truth. Arnora studies it for a moment longer than necessary. Not because she fears it, but because she respects the ritual. Even monsters, after all, deserve acknowledgement. She breaks the seal. The words are formal, reverent, meticulous in their cruelty. Witness testimony has been received. The charge of intimate betrayal within a bound union is confirmed. Bijan Berg is hereby summoned to answer for his transgression. No adjectives. No condemnation. The law does not emote. It simply ends things. Arnora exhales, slow, measured, and feels something unexpected loosen in her chest. Not heartbreak. Relief. She sits at the small oak table by the window, the morning light catching in her dark hair, illuminating a face the city often called beautiful and rarely understood. Her hands do not shake. They never have. She folds the parchment once. Twice. Neatly. Bijan has finally done what neither of them were brave enough to do. End the marriage. A laugh threatens, quiet, almost unseemly, but she swallows it back. There will be no celebration. Not yet. The walls have ears. And gods, if they exist, are notoriously judgmental. She thinks of him now, not with anger, but with a distant fondness one might reserve for a childhood home long abandoned. He never wanted her. Not truly. And she had never been his to begin with. The ancestral pact had done its work. Bound them. Displayed them. Suffocated them politely. Arnora rises and moves to the mirror. She studies herself the way she always does, critically, honestly. A woman carved by restraint. Spine straight. Gray eyes sharp. A softness at her mouth that the wrong people mistake for weakness. You did it, she murmurs, not accusing. Just stating fact. Somewhere in the city, bells will soon ring. The Citadel will open its gates. Society will gather its appetite for justice. And Arnora Valdi will be expected to mourn. She smooths her dress, lifts her chin, and allows herself one final, treasonous thought. Let him die. And let me live. The candle flickers. Far away, obsidian walls wait. Act I Scene 2, a wedding remembered. The hall smells of incense and old power. Stone pillars rise like sentinels, carved with the names of ancestors who believed endurance was the same thing as virtue. Banners hang heavy in crimson and gold, each stitched with symbols older than consent. The air hums with expectation, polite, approving, absolute. Our Nora stands at the altar in ivory and iron-threaded silk. The gown fits her perfectly. Of course it does. Everything about this ceremony has been designed to fit, measurements taken, choices removed, objections preemptively buried beneath tradition. She remembers thinking, at least they let me choose the cut. Beechan stands beside her, rigid as a statue carved in obligation. His jaw is clenched. His hands, gloved, steady, never reach for hers unless guided by the officiant's nod. He smells faintly of wine and something sharper. Fear, perhaps. Or resentment. They do not look at each other. The High Arbiter speaks, voice echoing against stone, reciting words that have sealed lives for centuries. By pact of blood and bond of house. Our Nora tunes out the rest. She studies the crowd instead. Rows of approving faces. Families who have married duty into devotion so many times they no longer know the difference. Women smiling with a hollow pride of survival. Men nodding as if ownership were sacrament. Her mother's gaze meets hers briefly. Not warm. Not cruel. Just relieved. She'll endure, that look says. Like we all did. Our Nora swallows. The rings are placed in their hands, heavy bands of darkened gold, engraved with sigils meant to symbolize eternity. They weigh more than they should. When Beechan slides his onto her finger, his touch is careful, distant, as though afraid proximity might be mistaken for desire. She does the same. The officiant prompts the vows. Beechan's voice comes first. Clear. Controlled. Empty. I swear fidelity. I swear duty. I swear to uphold the sanctity of this union above my own desires. He does not hesitate. He has practiced this. Lies, after all, are easier when rehearsed. Our Nora's turn. The hall stills. She looks at him then, really looks. A man bound as tightly as she is, yet furious about it. She understands him in that moment more clearly than she ever will again. Her voice is steady. I swear fidelity. I swear duty. I swear to uphold the sanctity of this union above my own desires. The words taste like ash. The arbiter binds their hands with ceremonial cord, crimson, braided, unyielding. Applause follows. Bells ring. Somewhere, the citadel's distant towers gleam in the sun, patient and inevitable. As they turn to face the crowd, Beechan leans in, just enough that only she can hear. This doesn't have to be cruel, he murmurs. Our Nora almost laughs. Almost. Instead, she replies softly, perfectly composed, no. Just permanent. Years later, standing alone with a death notice in her hands, she will remember that moment and think. We were both sentenced that day. He simply chose to run. Act I, Scene 3, Our Nora alone. Night settles over the house like a held breath. Our Nora moves through the rooms without lighting the lamps. She knows every corner by heart, every polished surface, every carefully chosen furnishing meant to signal stability, respectability, success. A marriage rendered visible in wood and cloth. She closes the door to the sleeping chamber and leans her forehead briefly against the cool grain. Not in grief. In relief. The kind that loosens muscles you didn't realize you'd been clenching for years. She does not cry. She never has, not over this. Instead, she unlaces her dress slowly, deliberately, as though undressing a role rather than a body. The fabric pulls at her feet, silk whispering against stone. Beneath it, her chemise is simple, unadorned, chosen for comfort, not seduction. Even that feels like a quiet rebellion. She crosses to the wash basin and studies her reflection by moonlight. There she is. Not a wife. Not a symbol. Not an offering laid at the altar of lineage. Just a woman. Her face is calm, but her eyes have always told on her. Dark gray, observant, alive with an intelligence that has spent too long pretending to sleep. A mouth shaped for wit, for restraint, for smiles shared only when safe. She lifts a hand, tracing the line of her jaw, then lower, over her throat. This body has never belonged to him. Not once. It has waited patiently for her to catch up to herself. She thinks briefly of women. Not in scandal. Not in fantasies spun too brightly. In memory. The warmth of a shoulder brushed in passing. The quiet electricity of shared laughter. The way her chest has always responded to softness, to strength without dominance. She had known early. There had been no thunderclap revelation. No dramatic confession. Just a steady understanding that grew alongside her spine, firm, unyielding, inconvenient. This world had no name for that understanding beyond improper. So, she folded it away, neat as linen, and learned to endure. Marriage had been the final lid. Until now. Arnora exhales, slow and deep, and feels something inside her finally unfold, like wings stretching in a space they were never meant to occupy. They'll expect morning, she murmurs to the empty room. The room does not argue. She moves to the window and looks out over the city, its rooftops dark, its towers watchful. Somewhere beyond them stands the black citadel, obsidian and oath-bound, waiting to swallow a man who mistook betrayal for escape. She does not wish Bijan harm. She simply refuses to save him. For the first time in her life, the path ahead is narrow, dangerous, and entirely her own. Arnora straightens, squaring her shoulders not in defiance, but in readiness. "Let them come," she says softly. The night listens. Act I, Scene 4, The Confrontation. Bijan is already pacing when Arnora enters the solar. The room is warm with firelight, the hearth crackling softly, absurdly domestic. It has always amused her how the house insists on comfort even when everything else is coming apart. Bijan turns at the sound of her footsteps, relief flashing across his face, before he schools it into something sterner. "You received it," he says. Not a question. Arnora closes the door behind her. The sound echoes more loudly than expected. "Yes." He drags a hand through his hair. "Good. Then we can speak plainly." She arches a brow, crossing the room with unhurried grace. "We always could have. You simply preferred silence." That lands. He exhales sharply, irritation flaring. "This wasn't meant to happen." "No," she agrees easily. "It was meant to continue." He stops pacing. Faces her fully now. "I never intended to disgrace you." Arnora smiles faintly. Not unkind. Just honest. "Bijan, the disgrace was the marriage. The affair is merely paperwork." His eyes narrow. "You're cold." She tilts her head. "I'm efficient." "There's a difference." He steps closer, lowering his voice. "You could still speak on my behalf. Testify that our union was fractured. That I was neglected. The law listens to wives." "Oh, I know." She folds her hands before her, posture impeccable. "That's why they're so careful about which ones they silence." His jaw tightens. "You want this, then?" "My death." She considers the fire, the way the flames consume without malice. "I want an end," she says at last. "If the law insists on calling it yours, so be it." "You're condemning me," he snaps. "After everything." "After everything," she echoes softly. Then looks at him, truly looks. "Bijan, you never loved me. And I never asked you to. That's not. You resented me," she continues, voice calm but unyielding. "For surviving the same cage you were in. For not pretending harder. You didn't betray me. You fled." He laughs bitterly. "And you stayed." "Yes." Her gaze sharpens. "Until you opened the door." Silence stretches between them, thick and charged. Finally, he asks, quieter now, "Is there someone else?" Arnora does not hesitate. "There could be," she says. "If the world were kinder." He swallows. Understanding dawns, not fully, but enough to sting. "You won't save me," he says. "No," she replies gently. "I won't." The bells begin then, low, distant, resonant. The citadel's call. Bijan closes his eyes. Arnora turns toward the door, pausing only long enough to deliver the final kindness she has left. "I hope," she says, "that in another life, you were brave sooner." She leaves him with the fire and the sound of law approaching. Outside, the night waits. Act 2, Scene I. Bijan's arrest. Dawn breaks over the city in thin streaks of frost and light, brushing the rooftops with a false serenity. But the streets near the citadel do not whisper peace. They hum with ritual, discipline, and the weight of inevitability. Bijan is escorted from his home under the watchful eyes of the city wardens. Polished boots click on cobblestones like a metronome counting down his last steps of freedom. He moves carefully, still struggling to reconcile fear and indignation, the same mixture that has accompanied him since his vows were forced onto his shoulders. Arnora follows at a distance, observing rather than participating. She does not weep. She does not shout. She carries no torch for vengeance, only a quiet, unassailable clarity. Each footstep echoes the release she has been craving since the moment the law whispered its verdict. Citizens pause as the procession passes. Their eyes shift between curiosity and reverence, for the law is as sacred as love in this age. Whispers follow Bijan, small threads of accusation woven into the tapestry of the morning, but no one dares interrupt the ceremony. The citadel's gates loom ahead, jagged obsidian towers cutting the sky, their shadows pooling over the cobblestones like ink. The iron portcullis rises without sound, as if obeying the weight of inevitability itself. Wardens move Bijan inside, their faces masks of impartiality. Arnora lingers a few steps beyond, her silhouette framed by the gates, the rising sun painting her features with a faint, unintentional glow. She does not look at Bijan as he disappears inside. She looks forward, past him, toward the gates themselves. The black citadel is silent now, but its presence presses against her like a living thing. She senses its patience, its hunger for ritual, and, without admitting it, its curiosity about the woman who stands outside, composed, untouchable, and unafraid. Bijan's last glance reaches her for a heartbeat, a silent plea for understanding, for something to anchor him. She does not return it. She cannot. The gates fall behind him with a resonant thud. The sound is both a beginning and an ending. And somewhere, in the shadowed corridors of the citadel, another pair of eyes notice the figure at the gate, back straight, eyes forward. Thorin Mardaughter, executioner, law incarnate, observes the new arrival. Her expression is neutral, disciplined, but there is a subtle pull, a flicker of interest she does not yet name. The wheels of consequence begin to turn, and the air tastes of iron and inevitability. Arnora turns from the gates, her resolve unshaken. The game has begun. Act 2, Scene 2, First Visit. The halls of the Black Citadel are cold, but not inhospitable. Stone polished to an almost unnatural sheen reflects torchlight, flickering like the pulse of judgment itself. Each corridor is a ritual, every step measured, and the sound of boots reverberates like a warning. Arnora steps into the visitation chamber, a small room lined with iron-barred windows and a single table, smooth and heavy, bolted to the floor. The air smells faintly of wax and disinfectant, of authority and inevitability. Bijan sits on the far side, his posture taut, shoulders squared as if armor could protect him here. He glances up at her, eyes flickering between hope and indignation. For the first time, he senses that this is not a space for negotiation, only observation. "Arnora," he says, voice rough from the silence of his cell. "You shouldn't be here." She steps closer to the barred partition, her skirts whispering against stone. Calm, poised, unreadable. "I came," she says simply, "to see what the law has made of you." His brow furrows. "And what do you see?" Her eyes meet his, sharp and precise, cutting past the fear, past the anger. "A man who made choices he cannot undo," she says. "And a system that will not forgive either him or me for acknowledging them." He laughs, bitter, almost unhinged. "You're merciless." "No," she corrects gently. "I'm composed." "There's a difference." Bijan leans back, frustration curling in the lines of his face. You could still testify mercy." Her smile is faint, tinged with steel. "I could. But you would be free only to continue the pattern." "I am not here to save you, Bijan." The silence stretches, only the faint crackle of torches breaking it. He studies her for a long moment. You're not angry." Not like I expected. Arnora tilts her head, considering him. I've been angry before. And it accomplished nothing. Now I am free. And you're about to learn the meaning of consequence. He swallows, the word stinging because he recognizes it is true. The ritual of justice is relentless, impartial, and he is helpless before it. You really won't, he starts and falters. I won't interfere, she says softly, almost like a lullaby. Not because I hate you. Not because I forgive you. Because this is not about me. It's about truth. Bijan looks down, shame and fear mingling in his gaze. He realizes, in that moment, that Arnora has already claimed something he never could, a clarity he cannot touch. The visit ends without fanfare. No promises exchanged, no hand held. Just measured glances, respect born of unflinching honesty, and the knowledge that their paths have irrevocably diverged. As Arnora steps back into the corridor, the torchlight catches the glint in her eyes, something untamed, almost dangerous. She walks away from him, but not from herself. Somewhere down the hall, Thorin Mardaughter watches. A shadow among shadows, studying the visitor. The way Arnora carries herself has caught her attention, not for beauty, not yet, but for the discipline and quiet fire in her gaze. And for the first time, Thorin wonders if the law itself might bend around a single human will. Act 2, Scene 3, Second Visit. The chamber feels smaller this time. Perhaps it is the weight of inevitability pressing down, or perhaps Bijan has grown smaller within it, folded by shame and fear. Arnora enters with her usual poise, skirts brushing quietly against the stone floor. She does not flinch at the sight of him pacing, hands gripping the edge of the table, jaw tight. His anger is thinly veiled panic. You came again, he mutters, voice rough, but tinged with accusation. Why? To gloat? She tilts her head, faint smile brushing her lips. Curiosity, perhaps. Or duty. You decide which is more merciful. He stops pacing and looks at her squarely. Do you even care what happens to me? I care, she says softly, only that the truth is seen. That's all I have to offer. Bijan laughs bitterly. The truth? The law doesn't care about the truth, it cares about spectacle, punishment, order. Then let it have what it wants, Arnora replies, serene, unyielding. I will not interfere. I will not cry. I will not bargain. You are free to face what you have made. His eyes narrow. And if I beg? You can, she says, tilting her head, but it won't change a thing. Begging never changes the inevitable. He slumps into the chair, frustration leaking into despair. I never wanted this. Not you, not this life. Arnora studies him, her expression calm, her eyes sharp as flint. Then you acted according to your nature. And now you will be judged by it. For a long moment, silence fills the room, heavy and almost sacred. Bijan's chest rises and falls, a man drowning in the slow gravity of his choices. Then, softly, he asks the question he has avoided, even in thought. Is there someone else? Arnora meets his gaze, steady as a blade. There could be, she says, if the rules were not so cruel. He swallows, understanding dawning like a knife. You won't save me, he says finally. No, she replies. I won't. He closes his eyes, and for the first time, he sees clearly that he is alone, not in punishment, but in truth. As she turns to leave, a shadow moves across the far corner of the chamber. Thorin Mardaughter steps lightly, unnoticed by Bijan at first. Her eyes are fixed on Arnora, studying her with a curiosity that is far from professional. There is a subtle intensity there, a tension unspoken but electric. The executioner has seen the calm, the restraint, the quiet fire, and something about it has drawn her in. For Arnora, nothing has changed yet. For Thorin, everything has shifted. Act 2, Scene 4, The Introduction of Thorin. The chamber feels colder than before, though the torches burn the same. Thorin Mardaughter enters with the precision of a blade. Boots silent on stone, robe trailing like a shadow, eyes scanning everything and everyone without missing a detail. She pauses at the threshold, letting the weight of her presence settle. Arnora notices, of course. A shift in the air is impossible to ignore. She straightens, meets the executioner's gaze, and does not look away. Thorin tilts her head slightly, a faint smirk brushing her lips, a smirk Arnora instinctively knows is not for charm. It is assessment. Interest. A spark of dangerous curiosity. You are, Thorin begins, voice low, smooth, deliberate. Arnora arches an eyebrow, a playful challenge in her expression. Beautiful, intelligent, and wonderfully talented, she offers, half in jest. Thorin's smirk widens. Dangerous, actually, she says, her eyes glinting like steel in firelight. Arnora allows herself a slow, deliberate smile. I've been told that before, she replies softly, though usually by those who underestimated me. The tension between them is immediate, electric, and completely unspoken. Neither lowers her guard. Neither needs to. Yet, both recognize a challenge worth pursuing. Bejan, sitting helplessly on the other side of the barred window, is irrelevant here. He is no longer the axis of attention. Arnora's focus is elsewhere, and so is Thorin's. Do you always speak so, candidly? Thorin asks, circling slightly as if to map Arnora's defenses, her posture, her very energy. I only speak honestly, Arnora replies, equally measured. Truth is rarer than loyalty these days. Thorin's eyes linger on her, the faintest trace of admiration flickering beneath the professional mask. And yet you do not waver, even when faced with death's shadow. Arnora leans lightly against the table, a casual grace belying her sharp intelligence. One learns early which battles are worth fighting and which are simply ceremonial. For a heartbeat, the citadel itself seems to pause. The ritual, the law, the unyielding stone walls, none of it matters in that suspended moment between two women who recognize power when it wears skin. Thorin finally nods, almost imperceptibly. I will observe you, she says, voice low, almost a promise. Arnora's lips curve in a faint, knowing smile. I wouldn't have it any other way. The executioner steps back, but the spark between them remains ignited, unseen by anyone else, but impossible to deny. As Arnora leaves the chamber, the weight of the citadel presses on her shoulders, but now, a new gravity follows her, Thorin Mardotter's gaze, and the dangerous, thrilling possibility that the law itself might one day bend, around her. Act 3 Scene I, watched. The corridors of the Black Citadel are quiet, almost deceptively so. Torches flicker, throwing long shadows across the polished stone floors. Every sound, the scrape of a boot, the whisper of a robe, resonates like a heartbeat. Thorin Mardotter leans against a shadowed pillar, arms crossed, eyes fixed on Arnora as she approaches the chamber for her next visit. Not for Bejan, he has long since ceased to be her focus, but for the way she carries herself, unflinching in the face of ritualized punishment, unbowed by the weight of expectation. Arnora enters, composed as ever. She senses the eyes almost immediately, not in panic, not in discomfort, but in a quiet acknowledgement. She doesn't flinch. She doesn't attempt to charm. She simply moves with the precision and poise that has become her armor. Thorin tilts her head, curious. There's an intensity to Arnora's presence that is magnetic, unsettling. The faintest shift of a shoulder, a quiet line of a jaw, everything about her commands attention without asking for it. Arnora's gaze sweeps the chamber briefly, landing on the executioner. Their eyes meet, and for a heartbeat, the citadel seems to shrink, time itself bending around the tension between them. Thorin's lips twitch, almost imperceptibly, a smirk not meant to disarm but to measure. You walk as if the walls themselves will bend to let you through, she murmurs, quiet enough that only Arnora can hear. Arnora's smile is faint, almost teasing, but there's steel beneath it. Perhaps they will, she replies, voice calm. Or perhaps I simply walk regardless. The exchange hangs in the air, delicate yet charged. It's a dance of assessment, a silent negotiation. Neither yield. Neither lowers her guard. Thorin shifts slightly, stepping out from the shadow just enough to reveal her presence fully. You are remarkable, she admits, voice low, deliberate. For someone with so little to gain. Arnora arches a brow. And you? Remarkable for someone who watches rather than acts. Thorin's smirk deepens. I watch closely, she says, almost a warning. Because I recognize potential, dangerous potential. And I do not ignore it. Arnora allows a faint laugh, soft and knowing. I've been told that before, she says, her eyes sparkling with the thrill of the unspoken. For a moment, silence reigns thick, potent, almost intimate. In the quiet corridors of judgment and law, a spark has been struck. Arnora moves toward the barred window for her visit, leaving Thorin to linger in the shadows, studying her. The executioner is aware now more than duty or curiosity. There is interest here, and it hums beneath her skin, undeniable and electric. Arnora glances back once, just enough to acknowledge the gaze, and Thorin nods almost imperceptibly, a silent promise of observation, of challenge, and perhaps something more. The Citadel remains indifferent to all this, but the two women do not. The slow burn has begun. Act 3, Scene 2, The Exchange. The visitation chamber is quiet, the air scented faintly with wax and stone. Bejan sits, silent, inconsequential for once. Arnora crosses the floor, measured, poised, a woman entirely in control of the moment. Thorin lingers near the door, arms crossed, eyes sharp. She does not speak yet. Observation is always the first move. Arnora's gaze meets hers, and the faintest spark passes between them, a recognition that is both challenge and invitation. Finally, Thorin speaks, voice low, precise. You move through this place like you own it. Arnora tilts her head, faint amusement flickering in her eyes. Perhaps I do, she says, deliberately ambiguous. Or perhaps I simply refuse to be owned. Thorin smirks, stepping slightly closer, testing the distance. Dangerous, she murmurs, echoing her own earlier thought. Not many walks freely here without fear of consequence. Arnora's lips curve into a sly smile. Fear, she says softly, is for those who believe the walls can hold them. I choose not to believe. The smirk on Thorin's face deepens, sharpened by admiration and curiosity. And yet, she says, circling slightly, you are careful. Deliberate. Every word, every movement measured. Arnora meets her step for step, tone dry, teasing. Careful is not the same as cautious, she replies. One is strategy. The other is weakness. Thorin pauses, letting the words settle. There is a flicker, an unspoken acknowledgement of intellect, wit, and the kind of danger that doesn't announce itself with a roar. You're not easily read, Thorin says, almost a challenge. Arnora smiles, the faintest edge of mischief in her gaze. Nor are you, she counters. I wonder, which of us will tire first? A silence falls, thick and electric. Bejan shrinks into irrelevance, the weight of the interaction pressing around him. Thorin finally tilts her head, studying her more closely, appreciation and intrigue warring in her eyes. Perhaps, she admits quietly, I hope neither of us ever tires. Arnora's gaze lingers just a moment longer, eyes bright, voice soft but deliberate. Then we shall see, she says, and steps back toward the barred window, leaving the words and the tension hanging between them. Even the Citadel seems to sense it. Law and order have no power over what has been sparked here. Observation, flirtation, challenge, they exist outside its grasp. A slow burn begins to turn, from curiosity into something neither of them can fully name, yet. Act 3, Scene 3, Conversations of Principle. The torches in the corridor sputter, throwing Arnora's shadow across the walls. She steps into the chamber for her fourth visit over a month, carrying herself like a storm contained in silk and steel. Bejan remains silent behind the bars, his voice a distant echo in her mind. Irrelevant. Thorin leans casually against the far wall, arms crossed, the perfect picture of composure. Her eyes follow Arnora's every move, not with judgment, but with the kind of intense scrutiny usually reserved for blades in a forge. You're persistent, Thorin says, voice smooth, teasing, but with an undercurrent of challenge. Arnora stops, tilts her head, and allows a faint smirk to curl her lips. I believe in principle, she says, eyes gleaming. And curiosity. You seem to enjoy both. Thorin steps forward, slow, deliberate, circling as if mapping her for weaknesses that do not exist. Principle can be boring, she murmurs. Curiosity, however, dangerous. Dangerous, Arnora repeats, savoring the word. And yet here I am, unscathed. Thorin lets a corner of a smirk twitch. Unscathed. So far. That could change. Arnora leans lightly on the barred window, casting a glance over her shoulder. I do not fear change. Only predictability. And you, executioner, are anything but predictable. The smirk deepens into something more calculating. Flattery is a dangerous weapon. Arnora's laughter is quiet, teasing, melodic, soft but charged. Then you'd better watch your back. Thorin steps closer, voice dropping just enough to make the words intimate without touching. Do you ever tire of being so untouchable? Arnora meets her gaze evenly, smile sharp as a dagger. Untouchable is different from unwilling. But I assure you I can be persuaded. A pause. A beat. The air hums with the unspoken electricity of mutual recognition, a delicate negotiation between curiosity, respect, and the dangerous thrill of proximity. Thorin's eyes linger, appreciative, analytical, and perhaps intrigued in a way she has not allowed herself to admit. You are unlike anyone I've ever observed, she murmurs. And you, Arnora fires back, playful, teasing, voice low and deliberate, are far more fascinating than the law should allow. Thorin's lips twitch, half smile, half challenge. Perhaps the law is only as strict as we permit it to be. Arnora tilts her head, letting the words hang between them, daring, teasing, a spark catching fire. Then maybe we should test that theory, she says, and steps back, leaving a trail of tension and possibility in her wake. Bejan, once the center of this chamber, realizes he has vanished from relevance entirely. The dance between Arnora and Thorin is magnetic, dangerous, and entirely outside the Citadel's jurisdiction. And somewhere in the shadows, a slow, deliberate pulse begins. The game has begun, rules optional, tension unavoidable, and flirtation lethal. Act 3, Scene 4, The Subtle Shift. The chamber is quieter than usual, the torchlight flickering like hesitant hearts. Bejan sits slouched, smaller somehow, swallowed by the weight of inevitability. Irrelevant. Arnora's attention is elsewhere, and Thorin feels it immediately. Thorin approaches the barred window with a deliberate slowness, boots silent, eyes locked on Arnora. The air between them thickens, each movement measured, each glance loaded with intent. You seem remarkably unbothered, Thorin observes, voice low, teasing. By him, by the law, by all of this. Arnora leans lightly against the iron bars, a faint smile tugging at her lips. I do not allow myself the luxury of being bothered by what I cannot change. Thorin smirks, leaning closer, her presence a tangible pull. And yet, she says, almost under her breath, you change everything merely by being here. Arnora meets her gaze evenly, eyes glinting. Is that a compliment or a warning? Both, Thorin replies, letting her words hang, slow, deliberate. You are infuriatingly composed. And yet, I find myself drawn to it. Arnora tilts her head, a teasing glint in her eyes. Drawn? How inconvenient. Thorin lets a corner of a smile flicker. Inconvenience has a way of becoming irresistible, she murmurs, stepping just close enough that the heat between them becomes palpable despite the bars. Arnora laughs softly, a sound like silk sliding over steel. Careful, executioner. Flattery can be dangerous. Dangerous, Thorin echoes, voice lower, deliberate, is exactly the kind of attention I enjoy. The room seems to shrink, the air charged with something neither law nor custom can touch. Bejan shrinks further into irrelevance, his fate already sealed, his presence nothing compared to the quiet storm building between the two women. Arnora straightens, the faintest smirk curving her lips. Then perhaps, we should explore just how dangerous it can get. Thorin holds her gaze, eyes glinting with a mix of intrigue, amusement, and something she doesn't yet name. I look forward to discovering it, she says softly, almost a promise. The torchlight flickers, shadows dancing along the walls, echoing the tension, the flirtation, the slow-burning attraction that neither can or wants to deny. Outside the chamber, the citadel ticks on, patient and indifferent. Inside, rules and restraint have no purchase. Here, curiosity, danger, and desire play a dangerous, intoxicating game. Act 4, Scene I, The Price of Attachment. The citadel hums with ritual and law, corridors lined with stone as cold and unyielding as justice itself. Yet within its walls, a far more dangerous current begins to stir. Arnora approaches the visitation chamber, her steps measured, deliberate. Every movement has been observed, catalogued, but still, she does not falter. The price of attachment is awareness, and she pays it willingly. Thorin is already there, leaning against the shadowed corner, arms crossed, watching her approach. The faintest flicker of something personal, a human spark beneath her executioner's discipline, shimmers in her eyes. "You return," Thorin observes, voice low, teasing, and sharp as a blade. Arnora meets her gaze evenly, lips curved in that faint, infuriating smile. "You said yourself, curiosity is dangerous." Thorin steps closer, just enough that the air between them thickens. "And yet, here you are, risking more than you know." "I am aware," Arnora says softly, deliberately. "Attachment has a price. But it is one I am willing to pay." Thorin studies her, every line of her body, every subtle shift in posture, cataloging, assessing. "Bold," she murmurs. "Or foolish?" Arnora tilts her head, teasing. "Perhaps both. But you. I think you understand risk better than most." Thorin's lips twitch. "I do," she admits, almost a whisper. "And yet, even I hesitate with you." The air hums, charged with something neither of them can, or wants to, deny. Desire, curiosity, danger, every glance, every inflection, a gamble. Arnora leans slightly closer, voice soft, deliberate. "Are you always so careful?" Thorin's smirk is dangerous, calculating, and undeniably intimate. "Careful," she says, "is the difference between survival and ruin. But sometimes, it's worth bending the rules." The faintest pause. Their eyes lock, a silent agreement passing between them. They are testing, probing, dancing on a knife edge. Attachment, they both know, could cost them everything, but the pull is irresistible. Outside, the citadel ticks on, patient and indifferent. Inside, the first cracks of treason form, not in law, not in battle, but in hearts that refuse to be contained. Arnora straightens, stepping back with grace, but the tension lingers, unbroken. "I suppose," she murmurs, "we will see just how far the rules can bend." Thorin watches her go, the faintest echo of a promise lingering in her gaze. "Yes," she whispers, almost to herself. "We will see." Act 4, Scene 2, The Date Set. The chamber is heavy with anticipation. Torches burn low, casting long, quivering shadows across the polished stone. Outside, the citadel is silent, waiting. Inside, the air hums with tension, the kind that precedes a reckoning. Arnora approaches, calm, poised, but her heart beats faster than she allows. Today is not merely a visit. Today is the day Bijan pays for his betrayal, the final act of the law, the ultimate severing of the past. Thorin stands in the corner, arms crossed, eyes fixed on Arnora as though reading the steel beneath her composure. There is no mistaking the intensity now, both of them aware that what they share is dangerous and fragile. "You are late," Thorin murmurs, voice low, almost teasing, but the undercurrent of danger is unmistakable. Arnora meets her gaze evenly. "The law has its time," she replies softly, "and so do I." Thorin steps closer, deliberate, a predator assessing a storm contained in silk and steel. "And yet, you came anyway, even knowing what today holds." Arnora leans lightly on the barred window, the faintest smile teasing her lips. Because even in death, some truths are worth witnessing. Some rituals deserve acknowledgement. Thorin's eyes flicker with a mixture of curiosity and something sharper, desire, danger, admiration. "And you," she murmurs, voice low, "stand here willingly, at the edge of it all. Watching the law take its due. Watching a man die." Arnora's smile curves, faint, almost wicked. "Because I choose what I witness. Because I have no attachment to him. Only to truth. Only to moments worth remembering." The tension tightens, crackling like steel on steel. Every glance, every breath, a dangerous dance between them. Thorin tilts her head, the faintest smirk appearing. You are infuriating and utterly captivating. Arnora chuckles softly, almost a whisper, letting the words sink. I do hope you're keeping score, executioner. One day, the reckoning might not be his, but yours. Thorin's lips twitch, holding back both a laugh and something darker, something intimate. I'll remember, she says, almost reverently. Every word, every glance. Outside the barred window, Bijan waits, chained, pale, trembling. He is the law's focus. He is the sacrifice. He is nothing to either of them now. Inside, the sparks between Arnora and Thorin flare, undeniable and dangerous. Love, curiosity, and peril twist together as the hour approaches. The date is set not for pleasure, but for justice, for ritual, for hearts daring to defy consequence even in the shadow of death. Arnora steps back, her gaze lingering on Thorin, unflinching. The executioner's eyes follow hers, promise and warning intertwined. The citadel watches. But it cannot intervene in what begins here, between fire and steel, desire and law, two women who refuse to bow. Act 4, Scene 3, Truth Spoken. The chamber is stripped of pretense. Torches flicker, shadows lean, but there is nothing between Arnora and Thorin except what they bring with them, danger, desire, and the unflinching clarity of now. Thorin stands closer than protocol allows, her presence a living boundary of steel and fire. Her voice is low, deliberate, slicing the quiet. You are dangerous, she says, naming what she cannot ignore. Not because of what you do, but because of what you make me feel. I cannot, will not, pretend I am immune. Arnora meets her gaze evenly, unflinching, almost serene. The truth rises in her chest, steady, deliberate. And I want you, she admits, voice soft, but sharp, precise as a blade. Not a promise. Not a fantasy of salvation. Just, I want you. Here. Now. I choose this. A heartbeat stretches between them. No words of rescue, no illusions of safety, no bending the rules of law or duty. Just acknowledgement. Just desire made conscious. Thorin's eyes narrow, appreciative and alive with the weight of choice. Choice, she whispers, almost reverently. Then I see it. And I accept it, even knowing the cost. Arnora's lips curve faintly, tension coiling in the air like a wire ready to snap. No promises, she says softly. No safety nets. Just this. Thorin steps closer, their shoulders almost brushing, the proximity electric. This, she echoes, voice low, is enough. They linger in the gravity of the moment, no illusions, no excuses. The execution waits beyond the bars, the citadel holds its breath, and the law watches silently. Yet, in the eye of it all, two women have claimed a moment that belongs only to them. Choice is dangerous. Choice is fire. And here, for the first time, they are wholly, unflinchingly alive in it. A pause. A breath. The world outside has rules. Inside, they write their own. Act 4, Scene 4, Defiance. The chamber is tense, the torches flickering as if frightened by what is about to unfold. Bijan stands at the center, the final moments of ritual pressing like stone against his chest. Guards line the perimeter, rigid, precise, eyes trained on procedure. Thorin moves first. Quietly, almost imperceptibly, she shifts a hand, slightly delayed, barely a whisper of motion. A chain rattles differently. A torch wavers. Arnora notices, her pulse quickening, not in fear, but in anticipation. What? She murmurs, voice soft, curious. Thorin's eyes meet hers, sharp, commanding. Watch, she says, low, deliberate. The ritual falters. A chant stutters. Bijan hesitates, confusion cracking the ritual's rhythm. Guards glance at each other. Something is off. Thorin steps closer, deliberate, but in full view now, her presence commanding and dangerous. She does not touch Arnora, does not speak to her, but the effect is unmistakable. The law, the ceremony, the order of the citadel wavers under her quiet defiance. Arnora allows a small, almost imperceptible smile, caught between admiration and thrill. You aren't subtle, she whispers. Thorin smirks faintly. Subtlety is overrated, she replies, eyes scanning the chamber for reaction. And rules are negotiable. Bijin falters completely. The ritual, precise and deadly, unravels in a ripple, a single thread pulled out of the tapestry. The citadel notices. A guard's breath catches. Another steps forward. Eyes swivel toward Thorin. The executioner stands tall, arms uncrossed now, every motion deliberate and audacious. Her defiance is both professional and personal. She honors the ritual's law while bending it, reshaping it, letting desire and danger fuse in one incendiary act. Arnora steps forward, voice calm, but full of power and conviction. Sometimes, the law must see what it cannot bind. Sometimes, rules exist to be challenged. Thorin's gaze flickers with approval, admiration, and something sharper, a promise unspoken. And sometimes, she says softly, almost intimately, you must act before the world decides your fate for you. The citadel's authority falters in the face of the audacity. The ritual is disrupted, not destroyed, but shaken, a single thread of chaos woven through the unyielding stone. Bijin stands frozen, powerless. The world's law cannot reach the electric current between two women daring to defy it. The room holds its breath, aware that defiance has a price, but too late to stop it. The first real fracture in protocol has appeared, and both Arnora and Thorin know the game has changed. Act V, Scene I, the execution. The chamber is suffocating with ritual and expectation. Guards stand rigid, eyes trained on Bijin, his figure small, pale, a man who has brought the weight of his own betrayal upon himself. Torches flicker, casting elongated shadows across the cold stone floor. Arnora stands just beyond the bars, still, composed, but every nerve alight. She watches, not with hate, not with triumph, but with the clarity that comes when justice and personal freedom intersect. Thorin stands at her post, the executioner's axe in hand, yet her movements are different tonight. Deliberate. Calculated. Subtle alterations in stance, a pause in ritual, a small hesitation that bends the law's rhythm. The ceremony continues, but it is no longer rigid. The citadel feels it, the guards sense it, though they cannot name it. Bijin steps forward. His life is a thread pulled taut. The chant begins. The rhythm, precise, relentless, yet something is off. The executioner, sworn to impartiality, has introduced a fracture. Arnora's eyes never leave the center. She sees it, the subtle defiance, the quiet assertion of choice. The law will carry out its act, but the moment, the ritual, and the meaning are altered. Bijin's end is inevitable, but the power of the ritual shifts, and Thorin's presence is a spark in the darkness, shaping the course without undoing it entirely. Thorin glances at Arnora, just once. No words. No promises. Only acknowledgement. Only the quiet declaration that she can bend what seems unbreakable, and that choice is still theirs. The axe falls. Bijin is gone. His life ends. Yet the world does not feel the same. The citadel's ritual has been executed, yet altered, colored by human will, by audacity, by desire. Arnora exhales, a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Her eyes meet Thorin's across the chamber. There is no need for words, everything unspoken is understood. The law has been obeyed, yet the human heart has not been denied. For the first time, Arnora realizes that witnessing, bearing witness, is not passive. It is choice. It is assertion. It is fire in the ash. The citadel resumes its rhythm, indifferent, but inside the chamber, everything has shifted. The world has survived, changed, and in the space between stone walls and law, two women have discovered a freedom neither anticipated. Thorin steps aside, eyes meeting Arnora's, the faintest curve of a smile playing at her lips. It's done, she says softly, almost reverently. Arnora nods, voice quiet but resolute. And yet, nothing is over. Act V, Scene 2, The Reckoning. The chamber is quiet now, Bijin's absence a hollow echo in the stone. The citadel walls seem taller, sterner, yet outside the narrow windows, sunlight presses in, promising something Arnora has never truly felt, choice. Thorin stands near the heavy oak doors, cloak brushing the floor, fingers twitching near the ceremonial blade she no longer needs. She looks at Arnora, expression unreadable, tense, almost vulnerable in a way she isn't used to. "You're leaving," she says finally, voice low, edged with something more than observation. Arnora smirks, hands on her hips, posture teasing yet confident. "Yes, leaving, running, walking, skipping. I'll take all the synonyms you like. The point is, I've had enough of stone walls, laws, and idiots pretending to love me." Thorin tilts her head, amused and slightly incredulous. "And you want me to?" "To come with me, obviously," Arnora replies, eyes glinting, teasing, dangerous. "Unless you're too attached to the smell of stone and the comfort of predictable doom." Thorin lets a slow, deliberate chuckle escape, dark and low. "Predictable doom is all I've ever known," she admits, voice soft but daring. "And now you want me to step into the unknown with you?" Arnora steps closer, letting the space between them shrink just enough that the heat, the tension, the danger presses like a live wire. "Exactly. The unknown is thrilling. And I promise, with me, it's worth it. Risky, messy, dangerous, but worth every second." Thorin studies her, eyes dark, calculating, desire and fear tangled in a way she isn't used to letting show. "And what if I fail? What if I can't leave? The Citadel, the rules, everything I've built my life around." Arnora tilts her head, lips curling in a mischievous, lethal smile. "Then you'll learn what I already know. Life is better when you follow fire, rather than pretending to watch it from the shadows." Thorin exhales slowly, letting the words sink, letting herself imagine a life beyond stone and law. "You make it sound almost too tempting to refuse," she murmurs. Arnora grins, dangerously close now, teasing, leaning just slightly into her presence. "Almost? My life is never almost, Thorin. And neither am I." The air crackles, heavy with desire, defiance, and laughter. The Citadel may still loom around them, law and expectation a distant hum, but between these two women, rules are optional and fire is mandatory. Thorin finally allows herself to smile fully, a dangerous, intoxicating grin that matches Arnora's. "Very well," she says, voice low, almost a whisper. "Let's see if the world beyond these walls is as thrilling as you promise." Arnora's laughter is soft, rich, and untamed. "Oh, it's better. And we're going to make it unforgettable." They step toward the doors together, side by side, banter still flowing, sparks flying, hearts pounding. The Citadel fades behind them, law enforced, but the story, their story, is only just beginning. Ashes remain. Law persists. But in the quiet aftermath, something fiercer, brighter, and utterly uncontainable flickers to life. Act V, Scene 3, Wildfire. The Citadel is quiet. The night's rituals are over, the echoes of law and duty fading like smoke into the cold morning air. Torches gutter, shadows retreat, and the first pale light seeps through stone windows. Arnora stands alone for a heartbeat, breathing in the clarity that comes after chaos. Her heart still thrums with the echoes of choice, defiance, and desire. Then Thorin steps into the light, every motion deliberate, every glance heavy with the weight of what has passed and what has begun. "You're here," Arnora says softly, a teasing edge in her voice, though her eyes glimmer with relief and fire. "I am," Thorin replies, quiet, controlled, but her presence speaks louder than words. "And nothing outside these walls can undo what's begun." Arnora allows herself a slow smile. "Freedom is fragile," she murmurs, stepping closer. "But it tastes sweeter than I imagined." Thorin studies her, eyes softening, fierce yet tender. "And it's ours to shape," she says. "No promises. No illusions. Only this. Whatever we make it." Arnora reaches out, their fingers brushing again, tentative, intimate, yet confident. "Then we make it ours," she whispers, letting the words carry the weight of every choice, every spark of defiance, every moment that brought them here. Outside, the Citadel ticks on, still and indifferent. Inside, the rules, the law, and the rituals have lost their power over what is real, alive, and dangerous. Desire, choice, and audacity stand in their place, fierce as fire and as enduring as stone. Thorin closes the distance, a quiet, deliberate embrace that is part challenge, part promise, all alive with potential. Arnora leans into it, confident, unflinching, letting herself feel the thrill of survival, freedom, and the first taste of what comes after ashes. They linger in the new dawn, shadows of the past retreating behind them. The citadel's walls remain, unyielding and cold, but inside, two hearts have carved a space no law can touch. The world awaits. Rules persist. Ashes remain. But from the embers, desire, choice, and freedom ignite, and for the first time, they burn for themselves, unbound. Act V, Scene 4, A New Dawn. The gates of the citadel swing open, groaning on their hinges, sunlight spilling into the courtyard like molten gold. Arnora breathes it in deeply, chest rising, eyes bright, and for the first time in years, she feels truly unchained. Thorin follows closely, deliberate, measured, but there's a subtle tremor in her controlled pace. Arnora's energy is magnetic, unpredictable, and dangerous in ways that make her pulse quicken. "You move like you own the world already," Thorin says, voice low, teasing, just barely restrained. Arnora smirks, letting her gaze flick up, fierce and daring. "Because I do. And if you're smart, you'll keep up or get burned." Thorin steps closer, shadows and sunlight mingling around her, calculating, controlled, but there's a heat in her eyes that betrays her. "Keep up? I think you underestimate how dangerous I can be." "Dangerous?" Arnora replies, amusement and challenge curling through her words. "You? Please. I thrive on danger. I am danger. You're just learning to taste it." Thorin tilts her head, lips curling, a hint of mischief and defiance in her expression. "Learning, Dangerous, intoxicating, thrilling. You're a hurricane, Arnora. And I'm supposed to survive it?" Arnora steps even closer, letting the warmth of her body press near Thorin's, teasing the line without crossing it. "Survive it," she echoes softly, voice low, deliberate. "Oh, I promise, you won't just survive. You'll remember it." Thorin exhales slowly, a low laugh escaping, dark, dangerous, and teasing. "And you make it sound like surrendering is the only sensible choice." "Only if you're smart enough to want it," Arnora murmurs, a spark of challenge and temptation in every word. She lets her fingers brush faintly against Thorin's sleeve, a teasing, electrifying contact. Thorin's breath catches slightly, gaze darkening, full of both desire and defiance. "Smart enough? Or reckless enough?" Arnora smirks, a playful, lethal curve of her lips. "Both. I never do anything halfway, Thorin. Life's far too short, and fire far too delicious." They pause, breath mingling, the sun gilding their silhouettes, shadows dancing around them like witnesses to a new, untamed order. Thorin finally steps closer, closer than decorum, law, or expectation would allow, yet she does not dominate, does not force. She tests, teases, lets the tension ripple like a current between them. "And here I thought the Citadel held all the power," Thorin murmurs, voice low, edged with awe and challenge. Arnora laughs softly, a dangerous, intoxicating sound. "Power isn't held in walls, Thorin. It's in fire. And right now, I'm the one burning." The moment stretches, delicious, dangerous, intoxicating, and the air crackles with unspoken promises, power play, and the thrill of freedom. They stand there, two forces of fire, testing, challenging, daring. And for the first time, both understand, nothing, not law, not expectation, not fear, can contain what has begun. Act V, Scene V, Trail of Fire and Kisses. The cabin was a hollow shell of salt air and cedar, tucked so deeply into the pines that the wind only reached it as a whisper. Inside, the silence was heavy, charged with the electricity of things left unsaid for years. Arnora didn't just drop her cloak, she shed it like a skin she no longer needed. She turned, her eyes catching the moonlight through the slats in the shutters. There was a hunger in her expression that wasn't just physical. It was the look of someone finally claiming a stolen inheritance. "Home," she said, and her voice cracked slightly, losing its usual teasing edge. "Finally." Thorin stood by the hearth, her hands trembling. She didn't try to hide it. The distance between them, barely 5 feet of dusty floor, felt like a canyon they had spent a lifetime trying to bridge. "It's too quiet," Thorin whispered, her heart drumming a frantic, uneven rhythm against her ribs. "I can hear everything. I can hear the way you're looking at me." Arnora didn't answer with words. She crossed the space in 2 predatory strides. When she reached Thorin, she didn't kiss her, not at first. She simply pressed her palms flat against Thorin's chest, feeling that wild, racing heart. "Let it break," Arnora commanded softly, her forehead thumping against Thorin's. The citadel, the fear, the waiting. Let it all break right here. That was the spark. Thorin let out a jagged breath and lunged forward, her mouth finding Arnora's with a desperation that was almost violent. This wasn't a gentle exploration, it was a collision. It was the explosion of 2 stars that had been orbiting each other in the dark for far too long. The air in the cabin seemed to ignite. Their hands were everywhere at once, clutching at hair, pulling at leather fastenings with a frantic, clumsy urgency, as if the clothes were a prison they had to escape. Every inch of skin revealed was a new territory conquered. When Arnora's fingers finally brushed the bare warmth of Thorin's waist, Thorin made a sound, a low, broken moan, that seemed to vibrate through the very walls of the cabin. They didn't move to the bed, they didn't make it that far. They sank to the floorboards in a tangle of limbs and heat. The wood was hard and cold, but they didn't feel it. There was only the searing contrast of skin on skin, Arnora's calloused palms against the soft curve of Thorin's hip, the friction of their bodies moving in a desperate, uncoordinated search for closeness. It was a chaos of sensation. The scent of pine and salt, the taste of iron and honey on their lips, the sound of their names being gasped into the hollow of a shoulder. Arnora led with a fierce, burning hunger, her teeth grazing Thorin's skin, leaving marks that were promises of a future. Thorin met her with an equal, starving ferocity, her fingers digging into Arnora's back, anchoring them both to this moment, this floor, this freedom. They were no longer executioners or outlaws, they were just 2 bodies becoming a single flame. The buildup of months of stolen glances and brushed hands culminated in a frantic, beautiful release. Every touch was an answer to a question they hadn't been allowed to ask. As the frantic pace finally began to slow, the cabin settled around them. The shadows stretched long and protective. They lay together, skin slick and glowing in the dark, their breathing finally falling into a heavy, synchronized lull. Arnora tightened her hold, pulling Thorin's back against her chest, her lips pressed to the nape of Thorin's neck. She was still shaking, the aftershocks of the explosion rippling through her muscles. "We're alive," Arnora whispered, the words muffled against Thorin's skin. "We're actually alive." Thorin reached back, interlacing her fingers with Arnora's, squeezing so hard her knuckles turned white. She didn't have the words yet, her soul was still vibrating from the impact, so she simply leaned back into the heat, letting the fire of their union burn away the last lingering shadows of the citadel. The afterglow. The frantic heat had settled into a steady, radiating warmth that pulsed between them. The cabin, once cold and hollow, now felt small and protective, a wooden ribcage holding the only 2 hearts that mattered. Arnora lay on her side, her head propped up by a bent arm, watching the slow, rhythmic rise and fall of Thorin's shoulders. The moonlight through the shutters painted silver stripes across Thorin's skin, highlighting the shallow valleys of muscle and the lingering flush of their exertion. For the first time in years, the tension had left Thorin's face. Her features were soft, smoothed out by a peace that felt almost miraculous. Thorin shifted, her skin whispering against the worn wood as she turned to face Arnora. Her eyes were heavy-lidded, dark with a quiet awe. She reached out, her hand hesitant for only a second before her fingers began a slow, reverent journey. She traced the line of Arnora's collarbone, then moved upward to the pulse point at her neck, lingering there to feel the steady thump-thump of a life she now claimed as her own. "You're so quiet," Thorin whispered, her voice barely a breath. It was a stark contrast to the desperate sounds of moments before. Arnora caught Thorin's hand, pressing a lingering kiss into the palm before resting it against her own cheek. "I'm listening," she murmured. "To what?" The silence. It doesn't sound like a threat anymore. Arnora's eyes searched Thorin's, her gaze uncharacteristically soft. In the Scaoria, even the silence was loud. It was full of eyes and whispers. Here, it's just us. It's the first time I can hear my own thoughts without them screaming at me to run. Thorin moved closer, sliding her arm around Arnora's waist and pulling her into the curve of her body. She tucked her chin over Arnora's shoulder, breathing in the scent of salt, wood smoke, and the clean, sharp smell of the pines. There was no urgency now, only a deep, grounding gravity. We don't have to rush today, Thorin reminded her, more for herself than for Arnora. Or the day after. Arnora let out a long, shuddering sigh, her body finally, fully melting into Thorin's embrace. She began to trace aimless, invisible patterns on Thorin's forearm, circles, runes of protection, or perhaps just the shape of her own relief. Each touch was a quiet reaffirmation. You are here. I am here. This is real. Your heart is slowing down, Arnora noted, her voice growing thick with sleep. It's finally found its rhythm, Thorin replied. She pressed a soft, lingering kiss to the crown of Arnora's head, tasting the wildness of her hair. I think I've forgotten how to be still. I've forgotten that a bed or even a floor can just be a place to rest, not a place to hide. They lay there for a long time, limbs tangled, letting the cold night air outside the walls serve only to make their shared warmth feel like a treasure. There was no need for grand declarations. The way their fingers remained interlaced, even as sleep began to pull at them, said everything. The fire in their blood had become a hearth in their souls. Sleep, Thorin, Arnora whispered, her eyes drifting shut. I'll be right here when the sun finds us. Thorin didn't answer with words, only by tightening her hold, anchoring them both to the safety of the dark. For the first time in their lives, the morning wasn't a deadline, it was a gift. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe and like this video and follow me for more stories. You are always welcome here, and leave me a comment or a thumbs up, just letting me know if you like the story and would like more, or is there perhaps an idea that you would like to share or let me write for you.